So here's the thing. All of us have things that make us feel really uncomfortable. That's just true. Now I might start sounding stoic, so you'll have to tell me why. But part of the way that we become more comfortable with them is by sort of hanging out in that space through approximation, right? So I remember my first day as a real MD, and I was walking into Yale New Haven Hospital, and it's one of only 2 times in my life when my knees were knocking together, and I felt them knock, and it was like a weird, knocking knees is a weird sensation. But by the end of my 10 hours in the hospital, there was 0 knee knocking, and the knees never knocked again in the hospital, right? Those knees were tired. So you spend enough time with something that makes you uncomfortable, and it becomes less scary. It becomes sort of more normal. So why is it that death has become so fearful in the modern era? Well, if you look at the last 100 years, we went from mostly dying at home to mostly dying in institutions, and most of us have not spent much time at the bedside of someone actively dying. Very few people in this room, if I asked you to raise your hands, would probably raise your hands. But it used to not be that way. Between infant mortality and child mortality and the fact that people died by age 40 or 50, your life was over. All people were seeing death all the time. And then this was reinforced with community practices. So if we're really going to, lift the veneer, as I said and you said, then we need to just sort of make death a little bit more part of the conversation. I once wrote an article published in some online thing about making the case for Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving we just had, as the day when we should talk about death with our communities. Why? Well, Thursday is all about Thanksgiving and good living, and then Friday you get up and go shopping, thinking about good living. So, if living well is tied to dying well, then by the end of Friday, you should sit down with your loved ones and talk about what it means to die well. The article was published on Black Friday, but I don't know that many people have made this a habit, probably no one. But how do we bring conversations about death back into the rhythms? And again, it doesn't have to be morbid, it doesn't have to be crazy, but just to sort of acknowledge that it's part of life. It's a given, and so we need to prepare.